Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for being here. We want to welcome you all to our session, Stitching Together Student Support, Pedagogy and Retention in a Hmong Studies Classroom. So as we get started, what I really want to start by saying is that you're going to hear a little bit more from me for the first part of this panel, this presentation, as we start to try and give some context to what we really want to talk about as we start to dive in. But I do want to be clear here, right, that the goal of this presentation, the goal of what we're trying to do here today is really to center Hmong American student voices. And so I promise, while you're going to hear me yap quite a bit at the beginning, we will get to hear from Shua and Jasmine as the main core of this presentation. And so in service of that, right, I'll start off by introducing myself. My name is Alex Hopp. I work here at the university for the People program, where I'm our college success specialist, and I also teach for the Asian American Studies program here on campus. I was a double alumni from UW-Madison. I did my undergrad and my master's here, and I was born and raised in Sheboygan, Wisconsin. So getting to be here, getting to play the home game, right, with a community that's really near and dear to me feels super special. So I'm joined with Jasmine Chang, who uses she, her pronouns. She is a member of the CO program here on campus, and I'm also joined by Shua Tao, who's a member of our very own People program, who also uses she, her pronouns. The reason that I'm giving the brief introduction rather than having them introduce themselves is because in a couple of slides, they are going to talk about their experiences in real depth. Right, to talk about how they've grown up in this community and to hopefully give an understanding to all of us here today about what Hmong student experiences actually are. And so with that, I want to turn to the kit that you all should have received. And this is a set of instructions and a kit of materials necessary to create a simple sort of beginner pandao design. Pandao is a traditional textile art within Hmong culture that we'll hear about a little bit more in a second. But what I really wanted to talk about first is why we thought it was important to offer an activity, why it was important to present this sort of hands-on component to our presentation today. And that's because for us, the power of Hmong studies, the thing that Hmong studies does, is in excess of the classroom. It's something that's lived, right? It takes diversity from something that we read about or talk about in an academic setting, and it becomes something that we embody, something that we do. And so this activity, right, this example of the instructions and the kit that you have, this is Hmong studies put into practice. These instructions were originally created by a man named Edward Zhang. He is a student here on campus. He is in the School of Human Ecology, where he's really started to hone both through his education here and his involvement in student organizations and his own pursuit of Hmong cultural knowledge, his abilities to develop these designs, his ability to actually create beautiful textile art, beautiful pandao on his own. And as a part of a Hmong studies class last spring, he created the initial version of these instructions and this design alongside instructional videos that allowed him to take a leadership role in the classroom and actually teach his peers what it was to engage with this art. And so, right, we have derived the instructions from that original set, right? There were some changes that we made to make it more suitable for this context. But I think really, right, part of the reason this is so meaningful to us, part of the reason we wanted to share this with you today is because it is an actualization of what Hmong studies can be, right? It is more than just words, something we want you to experience, something that we want you to take with you. And to be honest with you, it fits the theme of the forum pretty well, so that helps as well. And so at this point, I'm going to turn it over to my co-presenters to talk a little bit more about Pandao and to give a couple of instructions just about what we hope you can actually do with these materials you should have received.
So in a literal sense, Pandao translates to flower cloth, but it's more accurately understood as a story cloth due to its role in preserving and conveying Hmong history, culture, and life experiences through symbols, symbolic patterns, and imagery. Up until the 1950s, there wasn't a standardized writing system used by Hmong people. So, how did they communicate before the creation of systems like the RPA or the Pahao? They utilized symbols and motifs that were sewn onto pieces of cloth and clothing, which functioned as a form of visual language. Over time, Pandao has also become a source of agency for Hmong women as they have developed highly skilled practices of sewing and selling pandao, earning income and asserting cultural identity. There is no single way to fully represent what pandao is, but it remains an essential and meaningful cultural expression for the Hmong community.
So we did provide you guys with a pattern to follow, but please feel free to create your own pattern. There's no judgment in creating bandao, so we encourage you guys to express yourself in any way, shape, or form. You're free to say bandao while we talk in our presentation, or you guys can save it for after.
So maybe unfortunately for all of you, I am trained as a historian, and so we're going to start by giving you some historical context. And I think the overwhelming thread, right, the thing that I want us to take away from this part of the presentation is to understand that Hmong studies at UW-Madison is and always has been the result of student activism, right? When we talk about diversity, what it means to have our institution continue to embrace diversity, embrace new perspective, embrace new ideas, right? Hmong studies is an example of a time where they, right, despite real obstacles and at times real opposition, have in general done so, right? Have listened to the incredible hard work of the student voices that have come before us. And so I think having this thread as the through line as I talk through some of the important milestones that have led us to where we are today, right? I think that is kind of the context that informs everything else we'll discuss in this session. So to start off with, right, Hmong Americans arrive in the United States as refugees, and they really start to come in any sort of substantial number in 1975. For those of you who are good at math, right, that means that we are almost on the 50th anniversary of Hmong America. And so we are getting close, right, in 2025 to celebrating this incredible milestone. But I think one of the important contextual points about this is all of this progress, all of the development that you see of Hmong American studies, of Hmong American experiences, right, this has happened in an incredibly short period of time, right? 50 years is not that long, right? My dad is barely over 50 years old, and I feel old all the time. And so I think, right, what we can see is shortly after, right, about 7 years after Hmong America really starts, Wisconsin becomes one of the hubs of Hmong American life, right? Initially, Hmong Americans are resettled across the entire United States. They're intentionally spread as thinly as possible. The U.S. government makes the decision to do this, not for refugee benefits, but because they were concerned that the states wouldn't be able to support the refugees in their midst. And so in response, Hmong Americans use their agency and they engage in something called secondary migration, where they go from where they're initially resettled and they kind of find their own communities, they cluster up. And one of the places that becomes one of these homes, right, the state with the third largest Hmong population, is Wisconsin. And part of where we see this reflected is, of course, in higher education. So in 1982, Song Koo becomes the first Hmong American graduate of the University of Wisconsin-Madison. Right, and this, I think, is a marker of where we can really start to see the Hmong presence here on campus, right? A new group that's adding to the diversity of our institution here. Now, in 1987, you start to see the foundation of what will become the Asian American Studies program. And I swear it's not just because I teach for that program, but also because this program becomes the formal institutional hub for Hmong studies here on campus, at least in a classroom and an educational sense, right? And so they get their start also as a result of student activism. There's something that I'm going to call the Fiji incident, right? This is just how I refer to it. Fiji is a fraternity on UW-Madison. You can think kind of traditional organization. They got a house out on Langdon, and they would hold a Pacific Islander themed party every year. And one of the years, right, in 1987, they decided to promote this gathering by creating a massive cardboard cutout that was essentially a racist caricature. You can think it was essentially blackface stereotypes with a bone through the nose, right? We do have images of this, but we chose not to share them for, I think, maybe obvious reasons. But so when this happens, right, they have this massive display of just overt racism in the middle of campus. You start to see black students at UW-Madison protest. Right, the Black Student Union and other organizations come together and they demonstrate outside of the house. And in response, the fraternity comes in and says, no, you guys actually, you got it all wrong. You don't understand. You shouldn't be offended. This isn't the caricature of a black person. This is a Filipino. Because they believed, right, that the Asian American students on campus were not a functional political force. Right, that the Asian American students on campus would not protest, would not respond to this injustice in the way that their black peers had. And of course, the opposite happens, right? Asian American students come together, they join their black peers in this protest, and as a result, you see eventually the beginning of an Asian American Studies program, right? The need for this hub as a part of our education here at UW-Madison becomes articulated, right, as a response to both black and Asian American activism on this campus. And what you see kind of in the immediate years afterwards, a couple years later, they hired the first administrator, the first program head, right, is that UW-Madison makes a commitment through Asian American Studies to having these new forms of education. Now, a similar pattern happens again in 2002, and I think one of the big changes that we can understand that happens from, say, 1982 to 2002 is that the Hmong American presence on campus grows substantially. And that is a reflection, I think, of how the Hmong American community continues to grow in Wisconsin over this period of about 20 years, where they take on a wider significance, their stories are more well-known, their communities are more well-established. So the city of Madison makes the decision to name an elementary school after General Vang Pao. And General Vang Pao is a Hmong American general. He's a leader, right? He is the sort of supreme commander of the Hmong during the Secret War, which is the conflict that eventually causes Hmong to be refugees and arrive in the United States, right? So for those of you who are unfamiliar, right, Hmong at the time, before they were Hmong Americans, get recruited by the CIA. And they get recruited without the knowledge or consent of not just the American people, but the American Congress, right? And as a part of these experiences, once the United States decided that they want to pull out of the secret war in Laos, the same way they pulled out of the war in Vietnam, they leave Hmong Americans behind. They leave what will become Hmong Americans behind. Right, they leave them to fend for themselves. And so General Vang Pao is sort of the figurehead that represents this uneasy alliance with the Americans. He's the person who commands Hmong forces during the conflict, and he's the person that becomes their sort of figurehead, their rhetorical leader in the United States. And so the city of Madison decides, hey, we are responding to a burgeoning Hmong American population. We want to name an elementary school after him. And in response, a UW-Madison faculty member writes a series of open letters, right? This comes through in a variety of different newspapers around the city of Madison, criticizing this decision. He says, hey, actually, when I look at General Vang Pao, I see somebody who's a war criminal. I see somebody who is involved in the drug trade. And this is a critique that gets leveled consistently because part of the way that the CIA funded their war was by trafficking, among other things, opium and heroin. Right, and so the fact that he is involved in this, right, through the CIA by proxy, is something that gets pulled to the forefront here. And so the Hmong American community responds to this, and they respond with both veterans protests and student protests. They quite literally march around the Humanities building where this faculty member's office was, holding up signs talking about how not just an argument that, hey, this is a misunderstanding of our history, but also pointing out that at this point, there is nobody, at least in UW-Madison, nobody in these formal academic spaces to speak for the Hmong perspective, right? It is an one-sided conversation that I think reflects a lack of diversity and the power dynamics at play here. And so part of what happens is that more than 40 Hmong American students, a substantial portion of the Hmong American student population at this time, they come together and they call for a Hmong studies program. They said, if we had a Hmong studies program that could educate our community about these issues, that could maybe hire Hmong identifying faculty, right, maybe we would have somebody to speak for us. And I think the irony here is there is no Vang Pao Elementary School in Madison. There is one in Fresno, but there's none here. So in 2007, something I think even more severe occurs, right? A UW-Madison faculty member in the law school is teaching, and I use teaching in quotations here because really what he is doing is he's parroting these super racist stereotypes. He makes the argument explicitly to his class that Hmong men are all violent sexual deviants, that they're gang members, that they prey on Hmong women, that they're rapists, right? These are literally the words that he uses. And then he represents Hmong women as unable to control their bodies, as helpless victims without agency, as people who are just going to get pregnant right away, right, who aren't going to amount to much. And he makes the argument in explicit terms that we need to protect Hmong women from Hmong men, right? Really, I think, parroting some of the most racist tropes that we can imagine. And again, this leads to the similar question, right? Why is it that somebody is here who can speak about the Hmong, right, speak about what Hmong American experiences are, and we have nobody, right, at least in the same formal position of power, who are able to respond? And so this leads to a more sustained call for Hmong Studies programming across campus, not just in the classroom, but in other places as well, to address the ongoing ignorance about Hmong history and culture. Now, this brings us to 2017. And in 2017, the Hmong American Studies Committee, which is a student organization, right? Student founded, student led. And they've been working to try and get Hmong studies institutionalized at UW-Madison for over a decade at this point, right? They finally get some traction. And it's really interesting, right? If you're interested in what this was like, you can go and you can search up their organization on YouTube. And they can see part of their campaign was to go to dining halls on campus, was to do sidewalk interviews in places with a lot of students, and literally just ask them, what do you know about the Hmong people in your community? And the answers are predictably wild, right? Everything from invented histories to people saying, I've never heard of a Hmong person before, right? And so as a result of really sustained ongoing activism and effort by Hmong American students themselves on this campus, in 2017 they submit a proposal, a formal proposal, for the creation of a Hmong American Studies program. And the bid is actually unsuccessful, but what does happen is that the Asian American Studies program agrees to partner with this student org, agrees to work to create a Hmong American Studies emphasis within the Asian American Studies certificate. And so that is something that we have right now, right? Both of the students next to me are certificate students, right, who are taking this as a part of their formal education. And so Hmong Studies does, at least in this way, become institutionalized at UW-Madison. I pressed the wrong button. So if we're talking about Hmong studies today, what does it actually look like? I do want to mention that the Hmong studies we're talking about here is primarily in the classroom, but there is an incredible amount of Hmong studies work, Hmong studies celebrations that happen across campus. A great example of this is the Hmong Student Dinner, which occurs yearly, right? So he is really instrumental in helping to put that on. And it brings together over 100 Hmong identifying and their peers to come together to eat Hmong food, to celebrate their culture, right? Shua will mention this later maybe, but she is somebody who's been instrumental in this planning. So to be clear, right, on Sunday, you can go to the Hmong American New Year, right? The Hmong New Year celebration put on by the Hmong American Student Association here on campus. And so although what we are focusing on is academics, I do want to be really explicit. Hmong studies is not confined to a classroom, right? The Hmong American student experience is not confined to the things that we're talking about today. But it does exist in the classroom formally, right? And so this is where I want to recognize the work of many different individuals who've gone before us, but in particular, Dr. Chua Zhong and Dr. Chong Mua, who were graduate students at UW-Madison. They've since graduated with their PhDs. They now both work and teach at UW-Oshkosh, where they are continuing the project of Hmong studies there. But these are some of the people who pioneer these courses, who do the difficult work of determining, hey, this is what we can teach. This is how we can put Hmong studies into practice within a classroom. And so you can see, right, that the Asian American Studies program partner with student activists to create an emphasis, not as a final point, right, not as an end goal, but as a part of the process, saying that for now, while this is what we can offer, we will have at least some way in which students can have institutionalized Hmong studies here on campus. Now, a couple of the classes, just to give you an idea of what these actual offerings are. There is an Introduction to Hmong Studies course, right? That kind of sets the basis, tells the story of Hmong America more broadly. There are courses on Hmong and refugee texts, courses on Hmong social movements, courses on Hmong Americans in education, courses in Hmong history. There are language and culture courses offered by Sifu Chua, who is an absolute legend here on campus. And there really, I think, have become a diverse and really cool catalog of courses that allow our UW-Madison community to not just hear from Hmong voices and explore the issues relevant to the Hmong American community, but in many cases act as a home where Hmong students are able to engage with their peers, right, and learning about their own culture in service of a sort of different vision of what diversity looks like in education and in this curriculum. So I promised you, and I'm a man of my word, I swear, that you weren't just going to hear me at the entire time, and you have made it through the difficult parts of my context. And so now what I want to do is turn it over to my two co-presenters to talk about their experiences, right? They're going to tell you a little bit about their stories that brought them here to UW-Madison. And part of the reason that we're doing this is because their experiences are, in many ways, the best example of what diversity looks like here on campus. Their experiences, while personal, while unique, also speak to what the larger Hmong American experience is overall. And with that, we'll hear from the voices you actually came to see.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Shua. I am the youngest of 6 with 4 brothers and a sister. I was born in Prey, Thailand in 2001, and this past September marked 20 years of living in Madison, Wisconsin for my family and I. Madison is all I know and a place where my siblings spent the majority of their life, but it saddens me to note that there will come a time where my parents have spent more of their life in the United States than in Laos and Thailand. When we first arrived, we stayed with some relatives for a few months, but eventually moved into an apartment on the north side of Madison intended for diverse and low-income families. After our short time there, our family of 8 moved into a 4-bedroom duplex on the west side. It was yet another diverse and low-income neighborhood, and we could only afford it through financial assistance, but it was much more manageable as we had other relatives that lived on the same street. I shared a room with my parents. My oldest brother had the room in the basement. My sister had her own room, and the other 3 shared a room. The homes that my families once occupied are now boarded up, and surprisingly enough, I found that there are plans to demolish them and build affordable townhouses next year. During that time, as a family of refugees who arrived not too long ago, we still primarily spoke Hmong, and of course, in order to survive in this foreign place, we would have to get accustomed to the English language. So as the youngest, I had the most time to learn. A Hmong lady would come and visit our home to teach me English, and I picked it up ever since. I attended Head Start, which I am now learning is a federally funded program for low-income and or at-risk children. After that, I attended Falk, now renamed Malele Chikasa Anana Elementary School, to honor the late community leader. From kindergarten through 5th grade, a few other students and I would get pulled out of the classroom into a different room. Here we read books appropriate to our reading levels and took quizzes based on what we read. We had the chance to earn stickers, and if we read a number of pages, completed a book, or did well on our quizzes. I loved the stickers so much that I never once questioned why we were there. After this experience, I was never pulled out of the classroom for an alternative curriculum again. I am a pre-college enrichment opportunity program for learning excellence, or People Scholar, and this is a program that falls under the Division of Diversity, Equity, and Educational Achievements here at UW-Madison. There are 2 sides to People: the pre-college side designed to help low-income and or first-generation students get into college, and the college side, which helps those that got accepted to UW-Madison graduate. I first applied in 6th grade, but was told that my application was incomplete. Although disheartened, I applied again in 9th grade and was accepted. Through this experience, I received help with my school assignments at ACT Prep during the school year and got to stay on campus for a few weeks during the summer. During the college application process, I received a handful of help from people. At the time, it felt like a lot of unnecessary work, and being a high schooler, I felt very annoyed by it. But looking back, I might not be here right now without the help and support from people. I was also a part of another program, the Man Scholars Program. The goal of this program is to provide mentoring and educational tools to, but not exclusive for, Madison students of color. Each spring, every middle school in the district nominates one 8th grade student. Nominees and their families go through an interview process where 3 to 5 students are then selected to participate in the program. To have been a part of a welcoming and supportive community really helped in my journey during high school. In the elementary and middle school that I attended, there were very few Hmong folks overall. It wasn't until I entered high school that I got to meet more Hmong kids my age, other than relatives, through joining Asian Club, but even with that, there were still very few compared to the other high schools around. In Asian Club, we held fundraisers, attended the college fair at Madison College, and participated in the annual volleyball tournament against other Asian clubs at the different high schools. Oftentimes, I felt a sense of loneliness. I didn't have the same memories of Thailand as my siblings did, but I also felt that I didn't fit into an American standard as other students. Sure, I had friends here and there, but it never really felt like I actually belonged, to be 2 parts of a world, but to have no place in either. As a freshman in college, I took 3rd semester Hmong, where a handful of the students already knew and were familiar with one another. Although there were 1 or 2 other freshmen, being that it was Zoom University, it was hard to connect with them to foster friendship. Then came spring semester, where there were even fewer students enrolled in 4th semester Hmong. Regardless of all of that, I thoroughly enjoyed the class as it taught me how to write in Hmong and important things about the Hmong tradition and cultures. I thought that fourth semester would be the end as I was more confident in my writing skills now, but little did I know that I would go on to take fifth semester after a year break. I took my first Asian American Studies course that same spring semester that I took fourth semester Hmong. The primary reason that I took it in the first place was because of UW-Madison's ethnic studies requirement. This class would have fulfilled both that and the Gen Ed Combi one. But I was faced with a hurdle that I couldn't quite overcome and ended up dropping it 3 weeks before the semester was over. Knowing that I still had to fulfill that requirement, I took another Asian American Studies class the following semester, but this time it revolved around something that I was interested in, Hmong and refugee text. This was my first Hmong American Studies class, and in it I got to read texts written by Hmong authors and other Asian authors detailing their lived experiences and the experiences of their family. It's through the series of Hmong American Studies course that I became more educated on the background and current events of Hmong Americans and myself. Although there has always been an internal knowledge, they were all fragmented and never made sense. But slowly I was able to piece them together, gaining a better and fuller understanding.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jasmine. I'm the second born and the oldest daughter to refugee parents. And I'm also the first to attend a four-year university and a first-generation UW-CO student. In the early 1990s, my parents left the refugee camps in Thailand and they settled in California and Wisconsin as teenagers. When my mother was just 15, she left her family behind to join my father's family in Sheboygan, Wisconsin. And over the next decade, they had 6 children, 4 boys and 2 girls. My earliest memories are from a duplex on Sheboygan's north side, where we lived with my grandmother, my aunts, and my uncles. Those were years filled with community and family support, and it was a time when I felt completely free to be a kid. When my sister was born in 2010, we moved to a 3-bedroom house on the south side of Sheboygan, and 2 years later, my youngest brother was born. The move was a big change. I was filled with a lot of emotions. I was in the first grade, transitioning from Washington Elementary to James-Madison Elementary. At Washington, most of my friends were Hmong, and I had close relationships with my teachers. But arriving at James-Madison, I quickly realized I was one of only a handful of Hmong students within the classroom. I was placed in the SASD English Language Learner Program, but only for a short while. After I was unenrolled from the program, I often found myself as one of the only Hmong students within the classroom, and this would persist throughout my schooling. Middle school continued to be a challenge as I struggled to find a sense of belonging, even though I was surrounded by more Hmong students than before. While I eventually made Hmong friends, I also spent a lot of time involved in extracurriculars. I was co-president of student council, I played on the volleyball team, I joined yearbook club, and I volunteered in my community during my time in middle school. By high school, my involvement grew. I was part of volleyball, cheerleading, red team, HOSA, Rotary, and National Honor Society. My friends and I also restarted the Hmong Student Organization Club, and we co-led the club together. But despite these accomplishments, I still felt like something was missing. But I pushed on, believing that being liked by everyone and feeling my sense of belonging through academic validation would be enough for me. The summer between my freshman and sophomore year of high school, I attended 2 pre-college programs, one at UW-Madison and one at UW-Whitewater, which exposed me to new academic experiences and hope to attend university after high school. At home, I spoke Hmong, but with my growing school involvement, my fluency started to fade, and by the time I applied for college, I felt extremely disconnected from my Hmong identity. Everyone, including my parents, expected me to attend UW-Madison, but in reality, it was the last school I thought I would apply to. I submitted my application in February of 2022, assuming that I wouldn't get in. When I was accepted, it came with the requirement to join the Center for Educational Opportunities, also known as CO, which is a federal TRIO program within the DDEA supporting first-generation students. Coming from a family with no college experience, I felt a bit of shame wondering if I could have made it without the support of CEO, but that feeling faded once I started to get involved. Arriving on campus, I moved into Daejeon Hall with 2 of my high school friends, and with them, I began to navigate a new world, and this was the first chance for us to explore, grow, and find ourselves independently away from our sheltered homes. Midway through my first semester, I started to experience an identity crisis. And through everything, my CO advisor, Serena Sternad, became a tremendous support for me. I wanted to connect more deeply with my cultural roots, so I pursued an Asian American Studies with a Hmong emphasis certificate. And walking into my first class and being met with instructor Alex Hop, I began a fulfilling journey of self-discovery that continued for 3 more semesters, immersing myself in my culture, history, and community. Throughout my courses, I've learned so much about myself, my family, and the broader Hmong community. The Hmong classrooms have become a space for belonging for me, providing comfort and understanding as I navigate my place on a big campus.
So I mentioned earlier that their stories are unique and personal, right? But in some ways, they also capture what the reality of the Hmong American experience is in aggregate here at UW-Madison. And so while this is not the primary argument of our presentation, one of the reasons it's hard to talk about Hmong American student experiences today is that UW-Madison, the UW system as a whole, and many other institutions, especially public institutions across the state of Wisconsin, refuse to disaggregate student data to allow us to understand what Hmong student experiences actually are. So rather than telling us what it means to have Hmong student experiences, Hmong Americans will be lumped into sometimes Asian as a racial category, right? Being paired with not just other students with similar experiences, but sometimes even international students, right? Who are completely separate in terms of their experiences here. Additionally, even when it is distinguished by sort of domestic or even in-state Asian American students, right? They're lumped into other groups. And what we know about Asian America as a category is that there is incredible diversity. Right? On some cases, you have families and groups who have long roots in this country, who've been here since 1800s, right? In other cases, you have Hmong Americans whose grandparents might have arrived only 40 years ago. In some cases, you have Asian American ethnicities that are some of the highest earning groups on average, right? And then you have Hmong Americans who, in some cases, still struggle with poverty, right? And so the reason that we have these statistics, the reason that we have the things you can see on the screen, and you can see a QR code to check this out for yourself, is because of the extraordinary work, again, done by scholars and by Hmong American students here at UW-Madison to find the data themselves. And if there's one call that we have directly to the university, it is to disaggregate this data. But we are lucky because they've done the work. The Hmong American College Pandao Project has received a whole bunch of funding. They do an excellent job of making sure that we understand the actual nature of Hmong student experiences, not just qualitatively from the statistics you see on the screen, but quantitatively as well, right? They do a whole bunch of really cool projects. And so again, I would encourage you to use this QR code and check out what the data actually suggests. But a couple of highlights, right? And things that speak to how both Jasmine and Shua's experience tell the story of Hmong American students more broadly. Out of an enrollment of just over 37,000, UW-Madison has roughly 300 Hmong American undergrads each year. That number wavers, right? 300 is a sort of an average over a multi-year period, coming out to less than 1% of the total undergraduate student population. Of those students, 63% are affiliated with a scholarship program, either through the DDEEA, as they both are, or through the Center for Academic Excellence. So more than half, right, almost 2/3 of the Hmong American students who are coming to UW-Madison do so with the support or through the support of these scholarship programs that exist to help them. 79% of Hmong American students in the UW system as a whole, so not just UW-Madison, but the UW system as a whole, are first-generation students, and 80% in the UW system as a whole are classified as low income, something that they determine based on their ability to be eligible for the Pell Grant, right? And so when we understand the Hmong student experience, the Hmong American student experience, right, their ethnic identity, their racial identity is certainly part of the belonging they do or don't feel on campus, but also these other factors. Their belonging in these scholarship programs, right, their first generation status, their low income status, right, these are other things that go into the understanding of how they experience their time here at UW-Madison. The result, right, and this I will admit is a little bit dated at this point, but I think it paints the picture. The 6-year graduation rate of Hmong American students at UW-Madison is just under 72% compared to 86% for all students. And to be clear, graduation rate reflects for us, right, the ability of an institution to support its students that it's made a commitment to. It says nothing about the capability or the brilliance or the work ethic of the Hmong American students on this campus. I think really what we understand from this statistic is that taking everything together, Hmong American students do not get to experience the same sense of belonging and inclusion here. And that translates to things like retention, time to graduation, degree completion. And I can tell you firsthand, right, the Hmong American students we have on campus, including the ones sitting next to me, are brilliant, right? They represent the very best of what UW-Madison has to offer, and they represent the very best and the potential of what a commitment to diversity can mean, both for us here at the university and in the community as a whole. And so when we see a number like this, we have to ask questions. So that's what we're going to do in the rest of this presentation, is to think about arguments that we understand from our experience with Hmong studies. So for the first argument, right? The Hmong studies classroom functions as a place of belonging that dissolves the boundary between academics and student support. I am really lucky in that I have the unique positionality of working for one of these scholarship programs, doing advising related work, and also getting to teach, getting to be in the actual classrooms themselves. And one of the things that I've seen during my time at UW-Madison, both as an explicitly stated idea and as an implicit underlying assumption, is that we do the work of promoting student belonging so that they can make it through the time they're in the classroom. That the classroom is the place that is the harshest. The place where they might feel like imposters, they might feel like we don't belong, and we just accept this, right? We say that, hey, those experiences of feeling, of being overwhelmed by information presented to us, by curriculum, these experiences of being ostracized by peers and group projects, right? All of the negative experiences that our students have in a classroom that might make them feel like they don't belong here, right? This is okay because we're going to support them through it outside of the classroom. And our understanding of Hmong studies, right? What we have seen in the Hmong studies classroom is to reject this siloing, is to reject the idea that these two things can and should be separate, and indeed to challenge the assumption that these two things have to be separate. I think the classroom offers a place of additional legitimacy, right? It's symbolic. It's a place where the full authority of the university is felt by students and brought to bear on their experiences. It is, after all, right, the thing that brings us together. We are here to try and get an education, to be successful in the classroom and to get our degree. As a result, understanding the Hmong Studies classroom as a place of belonging and student support, not just as a place for education and instruction, is in our minds a radical act. And it's one that, as we'll hear, has transformative potential to be a foundational element of support for students of diverse backgrounds as they find their place on campus and in our community.
In my Asian American Studies 540 class, we were assigned a final project with the freedom to dive into any cultural practices that we resonated with. From the start, I felt pulled to work independently, wanting to craft something personal and intimate, yet unexpectedly, I found myself saying yes to a group project. And that small yes became the blossoming of friendships, the gaining of new skills for me, and the discovery of profound comfort in unexpected places. For our project, we decided to cook a traditional Hmong meal, which included boiled chicken with herbs, Hmong pepper, sticky rice, and a honeycomb cake. As we gathered in the kitchen, the space felt sacred, filled with the aromas of Hmong spices, sounds of laughter, and shared stories. As we prepared each dish, our conversations moved from lighthearted jokes to deeply personal memories and struggles. We spoke of the traumas we carried, the pressures we feel, and the resilience we found within ourselves. In that kitchen, it wasn't just the three of us present, but we also brought our families, our ancestors, and their voices into the rooms. Every dish we prepared seemed to honor them, igniting a shared unspoken presence that stretched across generations. As Hmong women in higher education, we balance many roles and expectations. On campus, we strive to be diligent students, but at home, we aim to be devoted daughters, sisters, and family members. In an academic setting, it's easy to feel divided. Yet here, over a simple meal, all those parts of us were welcomed and embraced. There was no need to prioritize one identity over another. In that space, we were whole. Cooking and sharing a Hmong meal together dissolved any walls that might otherwise separate us as individuals, allowing us to meet each other fully and see each other's unique perspectives. We connected not only as classmates, but as friends who could hold each other's vulnerabilities and goals, and as women carrying the weight of cultural expectations. Reflecting on my journey in Hmong studies, I realized that group projects in these courses often leave the most lasting impressions. During my freshman year, I took Asian American Studies 441 with instructor Alex once again. I was nervous to walk into a classroom filled with many upperclassmen because I was unsure of my space among them. But despite my worries, we were assigned a final project for the course as well. I had the chance to work with one of my peers, and little did I know that she would become one of my closest friends, Shua. Over the course of several weeks, we worked closely with two of our other amazing peers to design a Facebook page that focused on domestic violence within the Hmong community. We specifically chose Facebook as our platform due to its higher usage among Hmong individuals, ensuring that our message would reach the most relevant audience. Domestic violence was our focus as we recognize it as a crucial ongoing issue within our community, yet it is extremely under-discussed. Initially, I thought it was just another assignment, but it quickly became so much more than that. I came to understand the true depth of Hmong studies. It is so much more than just a set of academic courses. These classrooms are places where students and teachers can create an environment of belonging where support and empathy can flow freely. My time in Hmong Studies classroom has shown me that this is a space where the boundaries between academia and personal support dissolve, replaced by a powerful sense of community and shared purpose. We're not just there to earn a grade, we're there to honor our culture, to deepen our understanding of who we are, and to connect with others who understand the challenges and beauty of being Hmong. Here, each of us brings our whole self, the stories, expectations, resilience, and the pride we carry as Hmong students. In this community, every identity we hold is celebrated. This journey in rediscovering my Hmong identity has been transformative. The Hmong Studies classroom has become a sanctuary, a place where I feel seen and valued, where I can bring my whole self without compromise. Each lesson, project, and shared story has allowed me to understand the strength and beauty of my culture more deeply. Through projects like this, I found a renewed pride in my roots and a deep sense of connection to my classmates, my peers, and my culture. I feel the legacy of my ancestors guiding me, reminding me that I'm never alone in this journey. Hmong Studies courses have opened my heart to my Hmong culture in ways I could have never imagined. It has shown me that being Hmong is not just a part of who I am. It is the root of my strength, my pride, and my connection to others. Through the Hmong Studies classroom, I have found a place of belonging, a place where academic study intertwines with personal growth.
Jasmine did an incredible job at emphasizing many of the points that I resonated with. There's not much that I can add besides offering my own personal experience on how the Hmong Studies classroom has functioned as a place of belonging, dissolving that boundary between academia and student support. In many of my other classes that I have taken, I often fall short of being an active participant. I shy away from answering questions posed by my instructors or TAs, and is typically the last one to offer my 2 cents in a group discussion. When it comes to school, I have an irrational fear of making mistakes, but with Hmong Studies, I find that my willfulness to learn about my identity has been a driving force that helps me fulfill the role of both a learner and a leader. It's with the support of my instructors and peers that moves me beyond that fear. Being able to speak up invokes my sense of belonging because what I have to say matters. My voice is something to be appreciated and heard as it adds onto existing insights or offered new ones in this subject matter. As Jasmine mentioned, domestic violence in the Hmong community is the group project that Jasmine and I and 2 other bright and brilliant Hmong students worked on for Asian American Studies 441 Hmong American social movements in 20th and 21st centuries. From learning about social movements to actually applying our knowledge, it was a meaningful project that focused on a topic that all 4 of us felt strongly about. In a Hmong Studies classroom, we're allowed to bring all of who we are into a space. Not one identity gets left behind. In the Hmong Studies classroom at University of Wisconsin-Madison, we're given projects that connect directly to our heritage, such as cooking traditional Hmong foods or learning how to make bandao. Furthermore, the activities implemented into our curriculum gives us the freedom to create for ourselves in any way, shape, or form that we desire. These projects go beyond the surface level, allowing us to bring our family histories, our unique skills, and our personal stories. Through these through these hands-on projects, we're not only learning about ourselves, but also sharing and supporting one another in a meaningful way. This kind of experiential learning provides precisely the type of depth that not only benefits UW-Madison students, but the institution as a whole.
So one of the responses that we often get to talking about, right, the way that a Hmong Studies classroom can create and invoke a sense of belonging is that this is great for Hmong American students, but what about the rest of the students, right? And I'll say in some cases, right, this is asked really, I think, disingenuously, where really the question is, well, what about the white students, right? Isn't this this emphasis on diversity compromising their education, as if somehow Hmong Studies is not a valid part of the curriculum here? But that's not the activity or the argument that I want to focus on, because I think and I hope that in this room that's probably not how we feel, right? What I do want to focus on is the people who mean well, who say, okay, but doesn't this narrow of a focus, right? Doesn't a student who's not Hmong who takes this, who really is invested in ethnic studies, invested in learning more about diversity, learning how to embody diversity, doesn't this specific and singular focus make it difficult for them to get the full measure of what they might get in a course that, for instance, has a broader focus? And I think that this is an argument worth discussing. So for us, actually, the Hmong Studies classroom demonstrates the opposite, that identity-specific curriculum demonstrates how responsive pedagogy can serve as a bridge between students' academic and personal lives, as well as a bridge between our institution and the community that we serve. And really, I think in doing so, right, it is the depth of Hmong Studies, the depth that a singular focus gives you, that represents some of the best things about this curriculum, right, that allows students, even if they're not Hmong American, to really connect and understand diversity in a way that is different, right? Our argument essentially is that identity-specific curriculum creates a depth that in other cases might be missing. And in that depth rather than breadth, students gain the skills, the abilities, the cultural humility to then take those lessons and apply it in a broader sense, right? By forcing a really deep engagement with one history, one experience, one group, they are able to embody diversity differently. They're able to embody it rather than just think about it. So overall, right, Hmong Studies shows us that diversity requires depth as much as breadth, and in offering identity-specific curriculum that demands students participate in a sustained exploration of either their own identity or the identity of those in their communities, they develop a sense of cultural humility, really developing it, not just talking about it, that equips them to see diversity as a vivid, living commitment. And from that foundation, they develop ways and approaches to broaden their understanding of diversity and find moments of solidarity with all those in their community.
So on the screen here, there's a screenshot from the documentary Minnesota Experience, America's Secret War, that shows an older General Ving Pao and former CIA agent Bill Lair and several soldiers from their secret guerrilla units huddled around the two. This documentary was shown in my Asian American Studies 170 Hmong American Experiences in the United States, and if you haven't seen it yet, I would recommend you do so, as it details real-life experiences of those involved in the Secret War and more. From a young age, I had a fragmented understanding of the war, shaped by the series of Hmong movies that we had at home and conversations that I would hear growing up. Through this, I developed a general sense of Hmong experience, but over the years, my understanding became clearer, and I eventually realized that the war I thought Hmong people fought in was indeed not the Vietnam War, but the Secret War. Having a Hmong identity and growing up in America, I always felt like I was in a double bind regarding this matter. Hmong folks often have a very hush-hush way of speaking about things, to never speak of anything directly, and in school, this wasn't a part of the curriculum either. So in short, I was never formally taught about this, and yet I knew both too much and too little. So when the pieces came together, I felt a sense of relief for being able to see a bigger picture now, but I also felt disappointed in not knowing, because it always felt like I was just expected to know these things already. This is a feeling that I experienced countless time during my time enrolled in Hmong American Studies, but because it served my identity and interests, it offered opportunities for growth and reflection to move beyond just right versus wrong. Truth of the matter is, a lot of what I know now could still be wrong, but I am comfortable with being wrong if that helps me expand my knowledge. Not only did Hmong American Studies do that for me by giving me a chance to dive into this matter, I felt a deeper connection with not just my family and community, but myself as well. I am undeniably Hmong, and although my interests might be a part of a niche group, that doesn't mean that it's any less important. We know that America is no stranger to the war, so pretend that you're sitting in your class watching an hour-long documentary on war. You keep watching, and all of a sudden, you see a familiar man on the screen, enabling a rush of awe and woe. Could you imagine why a student who has never been directly involved in war might feel such emotions just by this? Maybe because that familiar man is her dad, and maybe her dad was just a boy, and maybe, just maybe, that boy was involved in the secret war. My parents have faced so many hardships, and yet here we are. Their resiliency and perseverance is what led me to be present today. Curriculum like this, being offered in a Hmong Studies classroom, is important as it reflects the experiences of real-life individuals of whom Hmong students can relate to and other students can learn from. When you care about your students, you do what you can to make them feel empowered, not just in their school, but within their community too. That's what the Hmong Studies classroom has done for me. I am getting a grade to learn about my identity, I excelled, and I am giving tools to better serve and understand my community, capturing the Wisconsin idea where education should influence people's lives beyond just the classroom. What I'm taught in my Hmong Studies classroom is what I will take with me as I move forward in my journey. As important as the Hmong Studies program is to me, it also contributes to other students outside of the Hmong identity. By engaging in these types of courses, I hope that their worldview gets challenged, broadening their horizon of what diversity is. I hope that my peers are able to get something new out of this experience because students and pursuer of educations, we should never leave a classroom with the same understanding we had when we entered. Because diversity isn't simply being able to acknowledge that people are different, that's the easy part. Diversity has to do with understanding those differences but still being in solidarity, especially at times of need. You don't have to feel the same emotions I do when I see my dad up there, but I hope you understand why it affects me the way it does. My past, my present, my future, and my existence, it's possible through the hardships of someone else's. I hope this moment helps you grasp what diversity really means, not just as an idea, but as something that's personal, lived, and impactful.
Also on the screen is a picture of my grandma. We aren't especially close, but the memories I hold from childhood and the little things I do today remind me that no matter how far we are, we're inevitably connected, bounded by the history, love, and resilience of our family. In her picture, she is seen holding bandao, which is an intricate textile art she's been creating for decades. Bandao has not only been a form of self-expression for my grandma and so many others, but it's also a source of income, a testament to her hard work and dedication. Before my mother got married, my grandma passed these valuable skills down to my mother, and growing up, I remember how every time I would open up the closet, I would see bright threads tucked away in a plastic bag at the very bottom of the closet. At the time, I didn't understand what they were for, but as I got older, I began to realize that these threads were pieces of their art, a part of the Hmong history. For Hmong people, bandao is a living, breathing art of our identity. Each pattern holds meaning, and the story cloth, which is a unique form of bandao, is an example of preservation of our culture through thread. In my Hmong Studies course, Asian American Studies 540, Hmong American Aesthetics and Culture, we spent one whole session learning to sew bandao, guided by a passionate peer of mine, Edward Zhang, who also created the bandao pattern for today's presentation. We watched videos showcasing the techniques, stitches, and traditional patterns of the Hmong people. Then came time for the class to create, and I sat there with needle and thread in my hand, and I struggled with even the simplest stitch. I thought if my mom and my grandma could do it, why was this so hard for me? But that quickly faded as I looked around the room and I saw my classmates, each deeply focused, helping each other, sharing encouragement and experience. In that moment, I felt a vibrant sense of community and connection. This experience wasn't just a lesson in embroidery, it was a bridge to my culture, the first of many. I began to feel a part of something that had always been there but felt out of reach. When I went home that night, I sat on my bed and I attempted another square of bandao on my own. When I finished, I looked at it in my hand and I cried. I felt as if somehow my mother's emotions, her patience, her strength were flowing through me. In other words, "Guniatsoke koshia." We often struggle to fully understand each other, but in that moment, it felt as if I could understand her a little bit more. That night, I sent her a picture of my work, excited to show her my accomplishments. Even though I didn't tell her directly, I wanted her to know I was trying, that I was learning, that I was reaching across our differences to know her better. Since then, I found myself noticing the small things, the way she moves, the way she speaks, and how she holds herself, and how she loves. Each detail feels like a thread connecting us, just like the thread between her and my grandma. Reconnecting with my culture and the tremendous help of Hmong Studies classroom has transformed me significantly. It has helped bridge generations, deepened my understanding of my culture, and brought me closer to my family. The experiences in my Hmong Studies courses have not only enriched my cultural identity and educated me, but it also reminded me of the love and resilience woven through my family's history. Through this process, I've come to understand how the Wisconsin idea, rooted in the belief that education should directly benefit and uplift communities beyond the classroom, has shaped my own personal growth. The opportunity to explore and reconnect with my Hmong culture has been made possible by the Hmong Studies classroom. By applying academic insights to real-world experiences, the Wisconsin idea has not only strengthened my cultural identity, but also reinforced the importance of using education to serve and connect with one's community.
So we have one final argument, but because we are running out of time, I'm going to talk about just the introduction very quickly. And I think all of this is to say that there is a ethnic studies foundation in place, right, that allows us and allows Hmong Studies to be a part of the institution here at UW-Madison. And while we see ethnic studies as currently conceived as a useful foundation, right, as something that is indicative of a commitment to diversity, we also feel that in many ways it gets reduced to a box to check. And this is something we hear from students, right, but this is also something that we hear from staff and from faculty and everybody involved at UW-Madison, right, that ethnic studies is something that we check off on our way to graduation, something that in theory allows us to say, yep, we can work in a diverse workplace and not offend anybody else, rather than something to be embodied and invested in and lived. And so our final argument is that the Hmong Studies classroom provides an alternative perspective on the goals of ethnic studies and allows us to more accurately capture student needs. It takes the goals of ethnic studies further, reconceptualizing their meaning to more fully serve student needs, preparing them not just to check a box, but to embody the empathy, understanding, and critical analysis needed to stand in solidarity with their peers in the workplace, sure, but also in the full course of their own lives.
So while the goals of an ethnic studies requirement is valuable in practice, it often just becomes another requirement students must complete to graduate. When reduced to that, it risks losing sight of its true purpose, fostering a genuine understanding of diversity that prepares its student for solidarity in their community, wherever that might be. Achieving that kind of understanding requires more than just a singular course. It is something that's complex, lifelong, and many of us continue to work on as we grow. I don't know what my future entails, but I have 2 goals I would like to speak into existence, and by saying them out loud here today, I am being held accountable to make it happen. Of course, I'm scared of not being able to achieve either of them, but they're both something that I am passionate about and really do hope to accomplish. The first one is working in higher education, particularly the DEI area. Being in people has made a significantly positive impact on me during my time here. I like to believe that the folks there are a part of my support system and are individuals who I am able to be vulnerable to. There aren't many places that I am able to do that. For students similar to me, it's beyond important to provide them with a similar experience. It's one thing to say that you're dedicated to your scholars, and it's another to actually show that you are. Not every scholar might feel the same way about the program as I do, but you only get out what you put into it. As for my second goal, I have a feeling that it's going to be more difficult as I don't know the first step of working towards it. I would like to really start my own organization dedicated to my community. It won't be the first of its kind, but it's but I would like it to be a step up from the current ones. It would be a place where all Hmong folks, from the little ones to the elders, are involved in. Of course, one service that I would like to include is similar to the Hmong Studies program, and I'm sure that there are those out there who would like to learn more about their Hmong identity, but are unsure of where to start. And I would like this to serve as a starting point for them, where we can have conversations surrounding sensitive topics, pushing them towards understanding and embracing their identity while uplifting others. Having taken Hmong and Southeast Asian focused ethnic studies, I understand that I am far from being culturally competent, but I do have the ability to recognize and question assumptions. I am conscious of myself and others. I find it very disheartening when I am on social media and I see Hmong folks go after someone on an unrelated tangent. The most fairly recent one I saw was over a video of a grown woman with kids putting her hands on the neck of a fairly younger girl after being confronted about cutting in line for a ride at the big Fresno Fair. That by itself is a big enough issue, and yet people feel the need to drag race into it. I have no issues critiquing my community. Being Hmong and taking Hmong courses does not mean that I will simply agree with those that share my identity. By taking what I have been exposed to, I strive to be someone that people can depend on. With what I hope to be in my future career, it's important that I'm able to cater towards the need of different people. Not everyone that I work with will have the same background and experiences. This means that I must be adaptable and open-minded, willing to listen and learn from each person's unique perspective. Whether working with students or colleagues, I want to ensure that I can approach each situation with a mindset that's both inclusive and responsive, building trust and creating solutions that are meaningful to everyone involved. Shameless plug, but I am graduating soon, so if you know of a full-time job, don't hesitate to let me know.
The Hmong Studies classroom has been more than just an academic space. It's been a place of belonging and discovery. Today, I also want to discuss how Hmong Studies meets and goes beyond the goals of ethnic studies at our university by offering an alternative perspective on diversity and identity that speaks directly to students' lived experiences. As a first-generation college student, and as someone who wants to pursue a career in medicine, I came to UW-Madison to not only seek an education, but also to understand my identity more fully. Many Hmong students, like me, arrive with knowledge about our culture from lived experiences, but we rarely find our culture represented in typical academic spaces. The Hmong Studies courses offer a space where I can explore cultural information that's familiar, but they also enrich my understanding in ways that go deeper and connect with others in my community. The ethnic studies requirement at UW-Madison aims to prepare students for careers in a multicultural world, add depth to the curriculum, and foster a better campus climate. I can say that Hmong Studies does all of this and so much more by creating a community in which students don't just learn about diversity, but they live it. In Hmong Studies courses, we're not just covering information from a textbook, we're discussing our own histories, struggles, and triumphs. This approach goes beyond a generalized diversity model, showing that diversity isn't just about exposing students to a variety of culture. It's about validating the experiences and identities we bring with us to campus. As a pre-med student, I'm immersed in courses that challenge my scientific knowledge and clinical skills. However, it is in my Hmong Studies classes that I learn to approach medicine from a broader, more holistic perspective. While pre-med courses equip me with the technical expertise needed to become a doctor, Hmong Studies teaches me the importance of cultural understanding and empathy in patient care. These two academic worlds complement each other, as they both shape the kind of physician I aspire to be. One who is not only skilled in science, but also deeply attuned with the diverse experiences and needs of the communities I will serve. As a student hoping to become a doctor, I recognize how crucial it is to understand and value diverse perspectives. In a Hmong Studies classroom, I don't just learn about cultural diversity in a theoretical sense, but I experience it in a way that makes it a part of my core identity. Hmong Studies has given me confidence to pursue my future career, especially as I aim to serve communities that need culturally competent care. For Hmong students, Hmong Studies courses provide a model of diversity that acknowledges and celebrates our backgrounds in ways that make us feel seen and valued. These courses redefine what diversity means by centering voices and experiences that have traditionally been overlooked. By doing so, Hmong Studies not only adds richness to the curriculum, but they also foster a campus climate where every student can feel they truly belong. In closing, I'd like to emphasize that the goals of ethnic studies are vital to our campus, but the Hmong Studies classroom bring these goals to life by bridging our lived experiences and academic learning. It goes beyond simply infusing diversity into the curriculum. Instead, it offers a transformative reconceptualization of diversity, one that is tailored to students' actual needs and rooted in real stories and traditions. As I move forward with my education and career, I know that the insights I've gained from Hmong Studies will remain with me, helping me to become a compassionate, informed doctor who truly understands the communities I hope to serve in the future.
So I think before we turn it over to Q&A, I hope that our presentation in many ways felt like a celebration of Hmong Studies here on campus. And at times, this is a celebration, and the progress that's been made has been in spite of obstacles put forth by this institution. And in other times, right, we have been fortunate to have an institutional commitment to diversity that has allowed Hmong Studies to flourish. I think both of these things can be true at once. But as you've heard today, right, the Jasmine and Shua, they bring not just a celebration of their own experiences and their own work, but a celebration of their communities, a celebration of their parents and their grandparents, and a celebration of the refugee experience, the first generation experience, the low income experience, the experience of being a DDEA scholar here on campus, right? I think one of the main things we wanted to do today was to celebrate a different type of story, one that you might not have heard before, to honor the ancestors that have brought us here, honor the students that have come before us to pave the way, and to celebrate a future where Hmong Studies can lead not just to a better campus, but a better community and a better world. I think Hmong Studies is the Wisconsin idea. And in times where ethnic studies, in times where DEI is under attack, it does us well as a community to remember that. Thank you. So for the Q&A, I will walk around with the microphone if there's a question here, and then we have some lovely support if anybody has a question from the virtual folks. So I guess we can start with an in-person one if the virtual is taking time. Does anybody have a question for any of us?
Hi, I'm Nicole. I work at the School of Education, and I work with some colleagues, Bailey Smolaric and Matt Wolfgram. They also work with some organizations. You may know the names. I'm just curious if there's some organizations on campus that, I understand that there's campus organizations for students. Is there any organizations that can bridge staff to support students?
So I can start by just saying that I think the really cool part about Hmong American student organizations on campus is that they're never restrictive. They always encourage staff to attend. And actually, I think one of the maybe challenges I would give to the staff in this room is, it's pretty frustrating when you show up to an event that's been put on and publicized by Hmong students, and you only see, for instance, Hmong American faculty and staff there, right? I think that's a challenge for me as somebody who's not Hmong, right? The Hmong community on campus is thriving. Right, the question for me and the challenge for me is, in these spaces that are open invitation, in these spaces that encourage others to join, what does it look like to get us to actually show up? I also want to give my co-presenters a chance. Are there spaces where you feel like you want to see more staff, where you really want to have those connections?
I think that there are times where there are times when I'm at events and I see there are staff and faculty there, but there's usually not a lot of interaction between the two. And so I feel that if we were able to, get them to interact more, it would be really nice.
All right. Do we have any other questions, either online or in person?
Thank you so much for the presentation, and thank you especially to the students for sharing their experiences. So I work in an academic affairs office on campus, and I love hearing that, in the classroom you all get to bring your full selves. And I'm wondering in other spaces on campus, whether it's through advising, through other classes you're taking, are there ways that we can encourage that sense of belonging for you all and that space for you to bring your full self?
I think personally for me, when I go to my advisor, I really hope that they are just very open-minded about what I have to say. They don't have to understand everything, but I really would, I think I benefit from just being able to, express what I'm feeling, what I'm going through, and having no judgment and being able to give me words of encouragement and just being able to give me the support that I need in the moment.
I feel the same way too, especially being in CEO. There's a lot of diversity there, so I feel really comfortable talking with the students and being the voice for the students as well, connecting them to my advisors and the other advisors within CEO.
All right. Got a virtual one.
Ask her. Does the program offer any multidisciplinary classes or opportunities for students who have an interest in, for example, STEM fields as well as Hmong studies?
Oh, this is one for me. So I would make the argument that Hmong studies is inherently interdisciplinary. And I think that sometimes, especially questions about STEM fields in particular, there's this idea that we cannot possibly have STEM courses that align with ethnic studies. We cannot have Hmong studies and STEM together. And to me, this is a failure on us as a campus community to use our imagination to imagine otherwise, right? And this is not just me saying this, right? We have real world examples of this on campus. So talking about the STEM field specifically, we can look at nursing, right? And the work that Dr. Mai-Chu Lor does over in the School of Nursing, one of the examples of how she's blended, right, the nursing curriculum, right, which I know, I would consider to be part of the STEM curriculum with Hmong studies is that, right, a whole bunch of research projects where they're creating guides to help offer medical translation, right? Because Hmong and English are not an even pair. And this has involved not just a deep and rigorous understanding of the linguistic process and the translation process, right? But also a deep, deep understanding of what these medical terms are, what they mean, how you talk about the most complicated concepts simply. And so I would make the argument that really, the fact that Hmong studies courses are generally offered in the humanities or in social sciences, right, is a failure of imagination from other parts of campus. If the only Hmong studies courses that we offer are the courses we have now, right, that are focused on these things that are separate from STEM, my challenge to the folks in STEM classes, STEM course would be, okay, so how can you bring Hmong studies to what you do? And this is where I think the argument for creating belonging in the classroom really starts to take on tangible form. Hmong studies is inherently interdisciplinary. It always has been, right? And I think the idea that we can find creative ways to link these two together, right? That's something that maybe that's what Hmong studies looks like in 20 years, in 10 years, next semester, right? This is the work that still needs to be done. Do we have another online one? All right. Do we have any other in-person ones? I think we have 3 minutes left, so I would love like 1, maybe 2.
This is probably pretty easily answered, but I'm just curious what the different spellings of Hmong are. Like, I've seen, is that just a mistake there, or?
All right, ladies, show them what you've learned.
So Hmong, when it's capital H and M and then OOB, it includes both the different dialects because for white dialect, we spell it HMOOB, and then for the green dialect, they don't use the H there. They just do MOOB. So when we capitalize both letters, it's an inclusion of both the two different dialects. And then Hmong with HMONG, that is the Romanized version.
All right, I know I'm sitting down in the audience. Any other questions?
Kind of a personal one, so feel free to pass. But I'm curious, what have you learned in the last 4 years or 3 years through your Hmong Studies classes? in your groups that you may not have learned about yourself had you not had that?
Um, I think for me, I've taken a lot of Alex's class, so if I hadn't taken any Hmong studies courses, I feel that I wouldn't have given myself a lot more grace than I do now. I'm sure my advisor knows I give myself a lot of grace now compared to in high school. So if I hadn't taken any courses, I feel like I would still be high school Jasmine, not giving myself rest or anything like that. So I've learned to give myself grace and be kind to myself because we all deserve a little bit of break sometimes.
As for me, I feel that I have a deeper connection with my parents now. Although I've always appreciated what they've done for me, having that understanding makes me see their actions beyond just them being parents, but their experience with war and why they might behave certain ways and why they might treat me certain ways. So I really come to appreciate just that.
Okay, one last question.
I might have missed this, but is the New Year celebration on Sunday open to everyone? And could you please provide more information for the people that would like to attend?
It is open to everyone. Trying to remember the exact details. It's going to be on campus. I forget which union it's in. It'll be in the evening for dinner. There is Hmong food that's offered. And so my encouragement for all of you, if you're interested in this, is to look up the Hmong American Student Association on social media, right, where this is being publicized, specifically Instagram, but I believe they have a Facebook and stuff as well. It's open to the public, and it's a really great opportunity if you're thinking, how can we take what we talked about in this presentation today and turn it into something simple that we do, right? And I think what you'll find is that the food's delicious, it's free, and you'll probably have some fun. So I know we're at time. The final thought that I'll offer is just, I think it really is a joy to be in community with one another, and I hope that our discussion of Hmong studies shows how transformative an institution like this can be. I think, especially in our current climate, we can sometimes see diversity as an obstacle or a challenge or something that is just a reminder of the work that's yet to be done, and that is true, but also there's joy in the process, and I think that our extraordinary scholars on stage are evidence of that. So thank you, everybody, for your engagement. Really appreciate getting the chance to talk with all of you here today.